Hey YouTube, Philly J here with Different Dimension Gaming, coming at you with my Earth Machine deck profile. So this deck is kind of like the machine version of Dragon Link, where it's just a bunch of engines that have really good synergy with each other. So much like Dragon Link, we're going to break this down by the engine because there's just too much going on to just go from one thing to the next. So that being said, we're going to start with our Infinitracks, and we're actually playing a pretty high number of them. We're playing one Tunneler, one Road Roller, one Brutal Dozer, two Trencher, one Anchor Drill, and three Harvester. So, going through the effects here, let's get everything organized. And through the magic of editing, here we are. So these four all have the same summoning condition, where you can summon it from your hand by tributing another Earth Machine monster, but they have to be summoned in defense position. However, they all have different effects depending on where and when their effects activate. So, for example, Tunneler, you can banish it from your graveyard to shuffle 5 Earth Machines from your graveyard into your deck and then draw 2 cards. So it's basically Pot of Avarice, but with your combos, you shovel everything into your extra deck and then draw 2 free cards. Road Roller, if it's used to Xyz summon a monster, the Xyz monster gains the effect that all your opponent's monsters are changed defense position and they lose 1,000 defense. Brutal Dozer, when summoned from your hand, and it has to be from your hand, can summon another Infinitrack monster from your deck. It can't summon itself, and it locks you into machines for the rest of the turn, and it negates the effects of the monster that it summoned. Trencher, when it's in the graveyard, you can banish it from the graveyard to target a level 5 or lower Infinitrack monster in your graveyard, except for itself, and summon it to the field. Now, these two are obviously normal summonable because they're a level 4 and a level 2, but they also have additional effects when they are summoned. And they both get their effects on normal or special summon. So Anchor Drill, if it's normal special summon, you can special summon an Earth Machine monster from your hand in defense position, except for itself. Harvester, if it's normal or special summon, you can add an Infinitrack monster from your deck to your hand, except for itself. And they both have the same on-field effect, where you can target another machine monster you control, and the levels of that monster and whichever one you're using the effect of become their combined levels. So because we are playing a rank 9, you can use Anchor Drill to target like a Trencher, and they both become a level 9. So that's it for our Infinitrack monsters. Now our second package is going to be the Machina cards. And for the Machinas that we're playing, we're going to play one copy of Ruin Force, one copy of Citadel, one copy of Fortress, one copy of Unclaspar or Unclaspare, depending, and 3 copies of Gearframe. So it's important to know that in our main deck, the only monster that is not an Earth Machine is our Ruin Force. It is a Dark Machine. Now, the Machina have been around for a long time, and the Gearframe and the Fortress have obviously been mainstays in the Machine decks, but let's break down what each Machina card does. Starting with Ruin Force, it's important to know that Ruin Force is not very good in your hand unless you're using it for a discard. But when it's in your graveyard, once per turn, you can banish monsters whose levels equal or exceed 12 to summon it from your graveyard. And then, if your opponent were to activate a card or effect in the battle phase, you can pay half of your life points, negate the effect, and then have your opponent's life points. card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon up to 3 of your banished Machina monsters whose levels total equal 12 or less. You can only use each effect once per turn. Machina Citadel cannot be normal summoned or set, must be summoned by a card effect, including its own. But it also has an effect on the field where, as a quick effect, you can target a machine monster you control, destroy it, and then destroy all your opponent's monsters whose attack is equal to or less than the destroyed monsters. And for its summoning condition, if a face-up Earth Machine monster is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon this card from your graveyard, as long as it's in the graveyard when the card was destroyed. You can only use each effect once per turn. Machina Fortress, you can discard any amount of machine monsters from your hand until their levels equal 8, including itself, to summon it from your hand. So you could discard itself and a gear frame to summon itself to the field. Or you could just discard Citadel to summon it to the field. And then when it's on the field, when your opponent activates a card or effect that targets Machina Fortress, you can look at your opponent's hand and discard one card from it. Then, if Machina Fortress is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can target a card your opponent controls and destroy it. Unclaspar or Unclaspare, if it's added to your hand except by drawing it, you can special summon it, and it locks you into the rest of the turn to machine monsters. And then if it's normal or special summon, you can send a Machina monster from your deck to the graveyard except for itself. You can only use each effect once per turn. So it's a really good way to get your Ruin Force in the graveyard or your Citadel in the graveyard, depending on what you're trying to do. And finally, for our Machina Gear Frame, if this card is normal summon, you can add a Machina monster from your deck to your hand, except for itself. And once per turn, you can target one machine monster you control, equip this card to it as a target, and if that monster it's equipped to would be destroyed, you can destroy this card instead. However, if this card is equipped to a machine monster, you can unequip it and summon it to the field. So off of one of our cards like the Therion King Regulus, you can equip the Gear Frame from your graveyard and then use Gear Frame to summon itself. But you don't get the effect to search because it's only on normal summon. Moving on from the Machinas, we've got our Train Engine, which is 3 copies of Flying Pegasus Railroad Stampede, 1 heavy freight train Derrick Crane, and the 1 Super Express Bullet Train. So for our 2 level 10s, let's talk about the big ones first. If you control a face-up Earth Machine monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. And then if this card is in the graveyard at the end phase, because it was sent there this turn, you can add an Earth Machine monster from your graveyard except for itself to your hand. Derrick Crane, if an Earth Machine monster is normal or special summoned to your field except during the damage step, you can special summon this card from your hand, but its original attack and defense become halved. And you can only use that effect once per turn. However, it does have a second effect, where if it's attached from an Xyz material for an effect, you can target a card your opponent controls and destroy it. So they're both very good for going into your rank 10 plays or extending into your link plays because they both gain additional effects. Our Flying Pegasus Railroad Stampede, if it's normal or special summon, you can target an Earth Machine monster in your graveyard except for itself, special summon it in defense position, but negate its effects. So, you can normal summon this and then bring back one of your Machinas or your Infinitrax or one of your trains, because it does get a second effect while on the field, is you can target another face-up monster you control. The level of that monster becomes the level of the other. So if you have Pegasus and Derrick Crane, Pegasus can target Daracrane, and then either they both become level 4 or they both become level 10. But it's important to know that the turn you activate that effect, you can only attack with Xyz monsters. So with that being said, let's get into some of our, just kind of our one-of cards, kind of our don't really have part of an archetype because they're just one-ofs. We have our 2 copies of Therion King Regulus and our 1 copy of Ancient Gearbox. So as I explained earlier, Regulus is very cool because it targets a machine monster in your graveyard, summons itself to the field, and then equips the machine monster that you targeted in the graveyard to itself. And while Regulus is on the field, it is a Omni-Negate, because when it's summoned to the field, you equip the monster that you equip to it, and then to negate the opponent's effect, you can just tribute your Regulus. And then if it is equipped to another Therion monster, like you can use Regulus to target Regulus, and he still gains the effect of the other one. But it's important to know that Regulus effect needs to tribute a Therion or a machine monster. So you can Regulus tribute your Ancient Gearbox to negate the effect. Ancient Gearbox is simply a utility tool. We don't really use its effect on the field because it doesn't have one, and we don't really want to summon it because it doesn't do anything. It's also very small. But if it's added from your deck or graveyard to your hand, except by drawing it, you can add an Earth Machine monster with 500 you can add a Earth Machine monster with 500 attack or defense from your deck to your hand. So it's a really good way to search out some of your Infinitrack cards because they've all got either 500 attack or defense, except for Harvester and Brutal Dozer. So again, just a good way to search it, to search something else. Now, moving on to our spells, we are playing quite a few 3-ofs because we want to see them in our opening hand. So we're playing 3 copies of Machina Redeployment, 3 copies of Heavy Forward. So each of these cards searches a different part of our deck. Machina Redeployment, you can activate one of the 2 effects on the card. You can either discard 1 card to add 2 Machina monsters from your deck to your hand, or you can discard a Machina monster and add 2 Machina cards from your deck to your hand. And that's important because we are playing a single Machina trap. So what this does is it gives you a lot of consistency because you could put something like your Ruin Force in the graveyard off a discard, and then you also have the effects of Ruin Force in the graveyard for later. Heavy Forward, when it's activated, you can add an Infinitrack monster from your deck to your hand, and once per turn you can target a face-up Machine Xyz monster you control and have it gain one of these effects. You can either change its battle position, or you can attach this card to it as an Xyz material. So it's very useful for some of our cards that need a lot of Xyz materials to activate their effects, or just to stack them on to something like our heavy Juggernaut cards. So for a few flex spots in the deck, I am playing 1 Revolving Switchyard and 1 Urgent Schedule, along with Therion Colosseum. These cards up here. 1 Terraforming, 1 Foolish Burial, and 1 Called by the Grave. Now, I am aware that you should be playing 3 of the Urgent Schedule. However, I have looked at about 6 different sites to order cards, and every single one of them are sold out. And nobody that goes to my locals has one. So I'm stuck playing my 1 copy. But if you were going to play 3, I would probably cut the Foolish Burial and the Disc Colosseum. But that being said, let's run into some of the effects. Revolving Switchyard. If a level 10 Earth Machine monster is normal or special summoned to your field, except during the damage step, you can activate this effect. Your opponent takes no battle damage for the rest of the turn, even if this card leaves the field, and you can special summon a level 4 Earth Machine monster with 1800 or more attack from your deck. And if you do, it becomes level 10. And then as a second effect, you can send one card from your hand to the graveyard, add one level 10 Earth Machine monster from your deck to your hand. You can only use one effect of Revolving Switchyard per turn. So you can either use the summon effect off of another summon, or you can discard a card to search. And it's important to know that for your level 4s off of Revolving Switchyard, both Anchor Drill and Railroad Stampede have 1800 attack. For Urgent Schedule, it's a very strong card going second, and it's a very good card to set on your opponent's turn, so you can use it on your opponent's turn to get some more interruption. If your opponent controls more monsters than you do, special summon one level 4 or lower and one level 5 or higher Earth Machine monsters from your deck in defense position, but negate their effects. You cannot declare effects when you activate this effect except with machine monsters. If this set card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can add a level 10 machine monster from your deck to your hand. You can only use each effect once per turn. So again, it's very good going first or second, because if you go first, you can set up a small board, set it, and then you've just got some more defenders. Or if you're going second, it gives you 2 free bodies before you even have to normal summon. Therion Disc Coliseum. When this card is activated, you can add a Therion monster from your deck to your hand. And once per turn, if your monster would be destroyed by battle, you can send one Therion card or one Endless Engine aggro system from your deck to the graveyard instead. Once per turn, when a monster is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can target one Therion monster in your graveyard and add it to your hand. So, while it does give you some consistency to help you find your King Regulus, it also helps you recycle them and kind of gives you another defender if your opponent's going for game, and you can kind of use a lot of cards to keep bodies on the field to defend yourself from losing. Terraforming simply searches the field spell from your deck to your hand. These are both field spells. Foolish Burial sends a monster from the deck to the graveyard, and Call by the Grave is just to interrupt your opponent's hand traps. And for our very small trap lineup, we are playing the 1 Machina Overdrive and 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. Infinite Impermanence is just a monster negate and can negate spells and traps if it's set before it's activated. But the important card here is the Machina Overdrive. You can target 1 machine monster you control, special summon 1 Machina monster with a different name from your hand or deck, and if you do, destroy the targeted monster on the field. So just as a hypothetical, say you've got Machina Gearframe on field, you activate your Overdrive, you target the Gearframe, and you summon Fortress from your deck. You then destroy the Gearframe, which could trigger the Citadel in your graveyard. And now you've got 2 bodies and an interruption. However, it does have a very, very strong second effect, where you can banish it from your graveyard, then target 3 of your machine monsters that are banished or in your graveyard, shuffle them into the deck, and then draw 1 card. You can only use 1 effect of Machina Overdrive per turn. So again, a very good way to gain consistency off of your Machina Ruin Force if you end up using its effect. Because it banishes so many monsters for its effect, it's a really good way to keep the consistency by shuffling them into the deck so you can keep using Ruin Force if you have to. So an Omni Negate that is revivable is always very helpful because it also has your opponent's life points. And we are playing some very heavy hitters in this deck. Moving on to the extra deck, once again we'll break it down engine by engine. So for Infinitrax, we're going to play 1 Earth Slicer, 1 River Stormer, and the 3 copies of Goliath. So Earth Slicer is a rank 9 that needs 2 level 9 monsters, 31 attack, 21 defense. When this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can attach that monster to this card as an Xyz material. Again, if you attack and destroy something, you gain Xyz material, which is very good in a deck that wants to retain Xyz materials to gain effects. Because Earthslicer gains effects depending on how many cards you detach from it. Now, Earthslicer says you can detach any number of materials from it to destroy that many cards on the field. Now it does target for this effect, so if you use 2 materials, attack and absorb, you can detach 3 to target your opponent's 3 cards, assuming they have 3, and destroy all of them. Or you can detach 2 of your own and retain your opponent's monster as an Xyz material, which is a very good way to keep your opponent out of their own graveyard. And it has a second effect where if it's in your graveyard, you can tribute 1 Machine Link monster and special summon this card in defense position. We'll get to the Link monster in a moment. But first we have to talk about Riverstormer. It's 2 level 5 monsters. When this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can attach that monster to this card as an Xyz material. So again, we're taking our opponent's cards and we're using them to power up our own cards. You can attach 1 material from this card, take 1 Earth Machine monster from your deck and either add it to your hand or send it to the graveyard. And then, much like our Earthslicer, if it's in the graveyard, you contribute a Machine Link monster and summon it in defense position. Now, that being said, let's get to our Link monster. It is a Link 1, and it needs a non-Link Infinitrack monster. That includes our 2 Xyz, or one of the 8 main deck Infinitracks that we are playing. If this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can target 1 Xyz monster you control, attach this card to it as Xyz material. You can only use this effect once per turn. An Xyz monster who has this card as Xyz material gains this effect. This card cannot be destroyed by card effects. So let's say you have your Anchor Drill, and then you link it away into your Goliath, and then you can use your Riverstormer Engrave to tribute the Goliath to bring it back to the field, and then you can just simply attach the Goliath to it. Infinitrack Goliath saw a lot of play during Kashtira format because it was such a good effect, and they would use it on their Arise Heart to protect it at all costs. Now, there is no such thing as a Machina extra deck monster, so we're going to jump right into our trains. We're going to play 1 copy of Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Juggernaut Libe, 1 number 81 Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Super Dora, 1 Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Gustav Max, and 1 double-headed Anger Knuckle. Now, these guys have got long names, but they are extremely powerful cards. So, let's actually run through it this way. So with our Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Super Dora, it needs 2 level 10 monsters. Once per turn, during either player's turn, you can detach 1 Xyz material from this card, target 1 face-up card on the field. That target is unaffected by card effects except for its own. Okay. 2 materials for Dora. Detach 1. Dora now becomes invincible. And having 3,200 attack and 4,000 defense makes it a very difficult body to deal with. Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Gustav Max needs 2 level 10 monsters. Once per turn, you can detach 1 Xyz material from this card, inflict 2,000 damage to your opponent. Before Monster Gate and Reasoning were both limited, there was a Ruin Force FTK that would just simply loop Gustav Max as many times as possible in a single turn. Now, for our Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Juggernaut Libe, it is a rank 11. It needs 3 level 11 monsters, or you can Xyz summon it using a rank 10 machine monster you control as material. and then you transfer its materials to this card. Once per turn, you can detach one material from this card. It gains 2,000 attack and defense. That's permanent. And it can attack the number of times as exiting material as it has, +1. But other monsters you control cannot attack. So let's say you've got your 2 level 10s on the field. You simply overlay them into your Gustav Max, detach one, inflict 2,000 damage to your opponent, summon onto your Juggernaut Lele, detach the other one. Now it has 6,000 attack forever, and it can attack twice. And with your opponent being at 6,000 life points because of the effect of our Gustav Max and having destroyed something with your Derricrane, that should be enough to go for lethal. That being said, however, we need to talk about our double-headed Anger Knuckle. This needs 2 machine monsters, cannot be used as link material. You can only use one of the following effects per turn. So, first effect, during the main phase, quick effect, you can send one monster from your hand or field to the graveyard. Target a level 10 monster in your graveyard, special summon it in defense position, but negate its effects. Or if this card is in your graveyard, you can send one card from hand or field to the graveyard to special summon this card. So again, it's a very good way to keep using the same resource and discarding to gain effects off of your Ruin Force, and then you can keep it on the field on your opponent's turn, and then you can bring something back on your turn. So again, the trains are very cool, very sticky cards. Now, we are playing the one of Ancient Gear box, and to go with that, we are playing the one Ancient Gear Ballista. Needs 2 Earth Machine monsters. Almost all of our monsters are Earth Machine, except for exactly 3. 1 in the main and 2 in the extra. When this card is Link Summoned, you can add 1 Ancient Gear monster or Gear Town from your deck to your hand. So, you Link Summon to search the box, and the box searches something else. As a second effect, you can target 1 spell trap you control, and 1 face-up monster your opponent controls, destroy that card you control, and if you do, change that opponent's monster's attack and defense to 0 until the end of this turn. You only use each effect once per turn. And for some of our generic cards, we are playing 1 Phantom Fortress Interblathnir, 1 Gear Gigant X, 1 Platinum Gadget, 1 Qliphort Genius, and 1 Zeus. So, Phantom Fortress Interblathnir needs 2 level 9 monsters, and once per turn, soft once per turn, you can use each of the following effects. Or sorry, you can use one of the following effects soft once per turn. You can detach a material to either banish a card from your opponent's hand, banish a card from your opponent's field, banish a card from your opponent's graveyard, or banish the top card of your opponent's deck face up. So you can just figure out a way to play 3 of this and loop all 3 of them, and then you can take 3 cards out of your opponent's hand before they even have a turn. Gear Gigant X needs 2 level 4 machine monsters. Once per turn, you can attach a material from this card, add 1 level 4 or lower machine monster from your deck to your hand. And then it has an effect when it's sent to the graveyard, it can summon a Gear Giga card. We're not going to worry about that. Platinum Gadget needs 2 machine monsters. Cannot be used as link material. The turn it is link summoned. During your main phase, you can special summon 1 level 4 or lower machine monster from your hand to a zone this card points to. And it also has an effect that searches a gadget. We're not going to bother about that. I realize this is a long deck profile. We're almost done. Hang in there, guys. Qliphort Genius needs 2 machine monsters. This link summon card is unaffected by spell traps activated by your opponent, and it is unaffected by the effects of other linked monsters. Once per turn, you can target 1 face-up card on each player's field, except for itself. Both cards' effects are negated until the end of this turn. And when 2 or more monsters are summoned or special summoned at the same time, to zone this card points to, you can add 1 level 5 or higher machine monster from your deck to your hand. So this is used for Qliphorts because it is a pendulum deck, but we're just going to use the effect to help negate some of your opponent's cards. You don't summon this a lot, but it does come up. And finally, for your Divine Arsenal AA Zeus Sky Thunder, you summon it on top of an Xyz material as long as an Xyz monster has battled this turn. It does not have to be your Xyz monster, but you have to have one to summon it. You can detach 2 materials from this card to send all other cards on the field to the graveyard. There's something very important to know about this card. There is no once per turn on this card. If you've got 6 materials on a Zeus, you can use the effect 3 times in 1 turn, no problem at all. But with that being said, that is the deck profile. I know it was a long one. If you're still here, thank you for being here. Make sure to like and subscribe. We'll be back for a combo video with this deck later on this week, and we'll see you next time.